fire or an emergency situation, you have to get up and go take care of it, and then come back and try to get some more sleep before you started the next day?
I try to get some sleep, and I'd get up, and of course you went to a fire, you had to take a shower, and when you got home, and then the next morning I'd get up and get the heck out and go to work. Sometimes I wouldn't be at a fire very long. Sometimes you'd be there till daylight, until I'd have to leave in order to make it to work on time.
Do you have any particular calls that you remember being at night that were kind of stand out in your mind?
Well, I was talking about the one there at the Western Tavern where it caught fire, and that was just around the corner from the fire station. And we got around there, and it was blew the windows out, and it was blazing to beat heck. And so the captain and I went up on the roof, which was what 10 feet up, flat, and he had one hose and I had one, and we were spraying it down, trying to cool that thing down up there. And he was on the north side, and I was on the south side, and I walked out about 15, 20 feet, and then I was spraying it down, and then all of a sudden the thing caved in, all of it. And I fell right down into the, well, as you can imagine, of hundreds and hundreds of bottles of alcohol was burning. And I thought, oh, this is the end for me. But I shut it off, the hose off real quick, and I followed it back and climbed hand over hand until I got up, and he yelled at Bill, and he came over and gave me a hand and pulled me on up, and we got off of the thing. But it was close.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was, and then of course I wasn't burned bad, but just enough that it was miserable. And then there had been a few times where we didn't have, I remember one fire we had was by a hay barn, and I had the hose out going on the thing, and the smoke, wind changed and the smoke changed and pinned me down. I couldn't see where I was or didn't know what was going on. I turned the hose off, and I crawled, I don't know, probably 100 feet in the hose to get out of it. And then that one just made me sick for about 3 days, the smoke. And then I was so sick I threw up and a couple of days to get back on my feet on that one.
Now, did you, because you guys were volunteers, and if you were to get injured in some way, burns or anything like that, where you had to go to the hospital, did you have to take care of your own hospital bill for that, or how did that work?
No, we didn't. No, when Bill and I had to go, we pulled those guys out of the area there at Rogers. They paid for it. I didn't. And I guess they paid, the city paid for it.
And what about, we'll talk a little bit more about this maybe, but when they started to get actual helmets and things like that for you guys to wear, is that something that you purchased, or did the city purchase it?
The city purchased it for us.
Okay. Tell me, describe again that call that you got that was related to the Rogers company.
Well, we had a call that there was a house fire over in, I believe it was the northwest side. And so Bill and I he had a radio, and he was the captain. He was in his pickup, and we were headed out to get up there, and the fire truck was ahead of us, and they had the breathing apparatuses on that. And so we got the call to go over there. There was a problem with these guys. It was Rogers and some kind of a chemical. And the guards had called us in, and then we got there. And we had nothing to breathe, and you got out of the truck, and it was probably 100 and some feet up there. And it was, you could hardly breathe there, but so we knew the guys were going to die, so we both took off, like I said, and Bill said, how long can you hold your breath? And I said, I don't know, maybe I'm only going to have to get them out. And so we ran as hard as we could to get up there, and then got them by the arms and dragged them. And when we got back out, both of us had to breathe, and then I don't know how we ever got out the hospital, but Bill took off, and we made it, and they run us into the, put us on oxygen right away. But they said if you guys hadn't got those guys out of there, they'd been dead. So anyway, they called us out and thanked us for helping them get out of there.
Mm-hmm. Do you have other memories of other calls that you got where you felt, gratified that you had been able to save someone's life?
Oh, let's see. I can't think of, well, no, I've seen a lot of them where I couldn't save their life, but where we did save their lives, I can't think of one that offhand other than that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there was times when we've got guys out that would save their lives, but thinking back, I don't remember.
What about, is there a story with Linford Cali?
Yeah, that was the worst one of all the experiences I had on the fire department. He was a friend of mine, and he worked for the city, and he had his pickup, a city-owned pickup. He was out south of town, and he was coming back in, and for some reason I was headed south out on Arizona Avenue in my pickup, and he hit this semi going south, and he was coming this way and hit him head on, and nobody can figure out why he did, but anyway, he hit him head on. And the truck burst into flames because back in those days, the gas tank was in the back of the seat on pickups. It probably held 20, 25 gallons of gasoline. Well, immediately it caught fire and it burst. I mean, it was just flaming to beat heck, and I was there within, I saw it, and then I was there within, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. And I wanted to get him out, but couldn't get the door open. And I had crowbar and shovels in my truck, and I pounded on it to get it loose and get the window open, but that didn't do any good. I still couldn't get him out, but by then he was, I hate to say it that way, but it looked like a monster, because it had cracked his skull open, and that was an opening about a ½ inch, and his brains were just right there, and his stomach had exploded, and all the inside was laying in his lap. And I thought, you're looking at, well, some guy come running in, he was going to help me, just coming down the street, and he saw that, and he went over and just threw up all over the place. It got him sick, but it was real sad. That was the saddest one I've ever went to.
Yeah, because you knew him. He was
Yeah,
a
because
friend.
he was a friend, and there was no way I could have saved him, even if I could have got the door open. He was
Yeah.
that
That
was,
must have been a real loss for, I know he was real involved with the city for a long time.
yeah, he was a good guy. Everybody liked him.
Yeah.
But they couldn't figure out the guy in the truck. Talked to him, and he said, I don't know why, but he just pulled right over in the front of me and plowed right into me.
Mm-hmm.
He probably checking something he'd gone out to check something at the water plant, and he might have been writing something down or something, and nobody knows. But
Are there any incidents that you remember where children were involved that were, memories that you have?
well, yeah, there's the one worst one I saw was we got a call, and from the fire station it would have been a quarter of a mile down in the south part of Chandler, and most of those old homes down there are all wooden homes. And the time we got there, the house was completely engulfed with flames, and we came up, and Bill and I kicked the front door in and went to the hose and started spraying it down, but it was just nothing. We couldn't get in, and we just sprayed. Finally got the fire knocked down, and finally got it. The old house is completely destroyed, but then we started looking, and there found, between the two of us, found 6 little kids that was burned out. One under the bed, one behind the couch, one by the window. I don't remember where all they were, but they were all. And the parents were a couple of blocks down the street in a bar drinking, and they come screaming home. Well, they saw their house on fire, but Only thing we could figure, the kids were playing with matches or something and got it on fire.
Yeah, that's really sad.
That was a sad, sad one.
Yeah, you hate to hear about stuff like that when that happens now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was so mad I wanted to kill those people. But you can't do anything about it. And they wanted, of course, go in there and see the kid. And I said, no, you're not going in. And I called one of the policemen there. I said, get these people the hell out of here before I bounce one on them.
Yeah. No.
Because I knew it was their fault that the kids were dead.
Yeah. Okay. Another question that I have is, I think one of the things that you see among firefighters is that there's kind of a sense of camaraderie between the firefighters. So when you first started there as a volunteer firefighter, do you think that was part of kind of that you had like a little community?
Yeah, a little bit, not like it is now, but it was. You would depend on that guy to save your life if you're on a fire, so you got to be kind of like brothers. And even nowadays, that's definitely, they just are like brothers, all the firemen. But, yeah, you felt that. Because you were risking your life, and they were there to, if you got in trouble, you were going to save you. Like Bill, now I could have maybe made it on up over the top, but when that roof caved in on me, but it was a lot easier when his hand came down, and I pulled myself up from there.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it was, especially because you probably had already inhaled some smoke.
Yeah, because I'd already gotten weak, and I was weak from breathing that junk, so.
And what about, how do you think being a volunteer firefighter affected your family?
Like a what?
How being a volunteer firefighter affected your family? Because it was one of those things where you kind of have to get up and go if you needed to go,
Yeah. Well, I don't know what you could say. I'm not quite sure I'm understanding what you're saying.
Well, I'm just curious about, and this is something that probably your wife could answer, but I wonder how you think your time as a volunteer firefighter affected your family, as far as you were putting yourself at risk, and these different calls and that kind of thing, and how.
Well, she knew that I liked to do it, and I was going to do it, but she was always afraid for me. She was always happy when I got home in one piece and not burned, but she didn't argue with me about getting on the thing, so we had friends on it, so she just felt safe felt better when I got home. But
And you had one daughter?
yes.
And what's her name?
Patricia.
Patricia. And how did she feel about you being a firefighter?
I guess she thought it was okay. A couple of times I'd come by the house and pick her up and take her for a ride on the old Dodge truck. She thought it was pretty neat, so I don't think she even thought that I was in any danger. She thought it was pretty new that her dad was a foreman, or was a fireman.
Yeah. Now, did you say that you also did firefighting duties for Honeywell?
Yes.
As well?
Well, it wasn't Honeywell then, it was like Air Research.
For air research?
But those days you didn't have fire in the houses, you just have them in different places out there, and where they'd be gasoline, or there'd be some kind of fuel or some kind of materials that would burn, and we'd have to go to them. But I was on that for a good while.
And I guess my last question for you is kind of curious about, you're starting out in the 50s, you're starting out, and when you go to fight a fire, you're pretty much dressed in your regular clothes, right? You don't
Yes.
really have any protective gear of any kind.
No.
So when did you actually first get your first piece of protective gear? Do you remember when that was?
It probably was at least a couple of years before we got anything when I was on there. I don't remember exactly when we got it. I did have the old coat that I had when I first went, and a helmet, but finally threw the dang thing away.
So you originally
helmet and a coat.
Do you remember, was the coat insulated in a certain way or have certain,
Yeah, it did. It was supposed to be kind of fireproof, but not completely fireproof, but it would be enough you could withstand quite a bit of heat.
did it have rubber on it or anything like that?
I don't know what the heck it was made of. I know it was stiff material and probably fire-resistant type materials. But it worked good, except that they were heavy, and if you were fighting a fire, and pretty soon the sweat would be pouring off you because of that coat, and sometimes I'd just dump mine off and go ahead and fight the fire.
And then after you had that first initial protective gear of the helmet and the coat, did they then go to a second set of equipment? Did you get something that was a little more updated with, technology?
Yeah, they had a resuscitator, what they call that was if somebody would quit breathing, we could go ahead and put it on their mouth. And this guy was one of the firemen, but he's not 200 pounds, and I had to carry that dude up at least 20 feet. And he got up there and he was laughing at me, and I was very unhappy with him because he stuck me down there and that guy wouldn't help me. He kept bringing him up. I was so tired I could hardly move.
Oh, no. That wasn't George Knight, was it? It wasn't.
No, George was along the second one that was there. Like Preston Hodem was the first one was there, and then George Knight, and then let's see, the one from Chicago, dang, I can't think of his name. He came and he was there for a long time, and he helped. He got us trucks and stuff, and finally he retired, and then finally died.
So you retired from volunteer firefighting force in 1976. Is that correct?
There were what?
In 1976.
Oh yeah, I retired from there.
Yeah. What made you decide to retire? Tell me a little bit about the responsibilities for the Women's Auxiliary.
Well, she can tell you more about that. What the heck did you guys do?
We all got together and made different things to outdoor parties and
It was kind of like a fundraiser.
fundraising for the women that came from other places. We did all something. Had good times.
Okay.
Well, and the girls we used to every Christmas we would get volunteered food like from Bash's and some of the orange groves around. We'd go out and pick oranges, and when we'd take them down to the people that didn't have anything down, most of them were down in the south part of town, and we'd take them food. And then the girls could kind of find out who needed it more than anybody else, so they helped us out there.
We went out and picked oranges.
She said,
Farmer lettuce.
yeah, she said the women would go out and pick the oranges. Yeah.
Oh yeah, all of us, while the firemen go out there, pick oranges. And then spend a half a day, get enough to where we could, whatever we could do, and take them down and give them to the, and then we finally got to where we were down, like all firemen, we were taking in bicycles and repairing them and taking them for the kids for Christmas.
Okay. So overall, I mean, you were with the Chandler Fire Department for many years, and you saw lots of changes over time. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add about your time in the fire department?
About the time I was in there,
Yeah.
well, it was an enjoyable 26 years I was on there. I mean, there was times that I was pooped out and got close to being killed and all that, but I enjoyed being there. I mean, I felt that I was doing something for the community, and being with all the guys, and it was neat. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I think if I would get one of my grandsons or any of them would want to know what they should do in life, I'd say that would be one good thing, to be a fireman. 'cause they were like a bunch of brothers hanging out together.